You're listening to the Freedom is Served podcast with me, Steph Ward. Subscribe for more. Welcome to Freedom is Served. Today I'm joined by Hannah Viney. Hi Hannah, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
It is great to have you here. So your company is called Sycamore PR and you have been in the PR space for a while now. Just give the listeners and the viewers a bit more information about that, can you?
Yeah, so I have been in business for 8 years now, which even though, we've been in business 8 years, I cannot believe that I'm still sat here as a business owner and now an entrepreneur as well. We are proudly multi-award winning now, both the business and myself as a business owner personally too.
Brilliant.
And our agency works with businesses from all sectors, which I know might sound quite broad, and a lot of creative agencies tend to hang their hat on having an identity with a particular niche,
Okay.
which I completely get from a marketing perspective. It's a lot easier to be able to call your sort of target market out.
Yeah.
For us though, I've completely taken the opposite stance to that, and you might think, God, she's mental, why is she doing that? But from a PR perspective, we are here to get the very best results for our clients. And if we go as an agency, okay, we're going to specialize in, let's say, just working with chefs, for example, or people in the food and beverage industry. If we've suddenly got 5 chefs on our books and they're all going head to head for the same media opportunities, the same awards as best UK head chef of the year, they're all trying to vie for MasterChef, TV slots or Great British Menu, it's going to be diminishing our clients' chances of success, which is not what I'm in business for at all. So
Yeah.
we take on clients from any sector. The only rule that we have as an agency is we only take a maximum of 2, so that it's not that cookie cutter approach that we've got separate account managers to deal with each client and have that different sort of creative outlook on what their
2 per
goals are.
industry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Two per industry, and then we cap it so that they're not going head to head for the same opportunities. And as a result, it has made our client roster over that 8 years so exciting, so broad, so diverse. And we get to be a complete sponge in the worlds of so many different types of businesses. So I love it.
So exciting. I mean, your passion, which I know is, PR, even when you didn't have your own business and your own agency in PR, you worked in PR and you really have a deep passion for PR. So I think the fact that you're wanting to help as many different industries and different people as possible is great. But I'd never thought about it like that actually it dilutes what you can give as an agency if you take on just one industry.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I do that is because the way I look at the services, it's our job as PR experts, PR consultants to be great listeners, great communicators, know how to ask the right questions of our clients so that we then have the ability to extract their expertise. I don't feel like I need to be coming into a pitch or speaking to a client already fully formed as an expert in, wills and probate law, for example. We work with that client, or I've worked with clients who are sex and intimacy coaches from Nigeria who are working on their personal brand to stick their head above the parapet for the first time in the UK and be that leader, that champion of a slightly riskier conversation. Like, I don't need to be the expert in their field. What I do need to be an expert in is spotting where their best stories are, spotting how to package that up in a way that's first and foremost going to attract the attention of a journalist, because they're the ones that are going to take that story then and put it live, and think about the client's dream target market or target audience at the end, and what story is going to resonate with those two audiences, and pitch it to the right media outlets that is going to drive that right attention for the client. That's where we need to sit, and then clients can do the rest in terms of shouting about what it is they're good at.
Yeah, great. Well, that bridges a really good gap. I mean, I heard something once, I can't even remember where I'd seen it or heard it, and somebody said that basically a journalist has one rule that they go by. And I'm asking if you can myth bust this for me, if it's correct or not.
Okay.
But basically, the saying went that if a journalist yes or no on a story would be, would they be stood at a bar in a pub and hear someone telling their mate about it? And if they thought it was interesting enough that somebody would share that news, that was like their green light. Is that complete made up? I've just heard that somewhere down the line. Or do you think there's a bit of truth in that? It's got to be, something that people are engaged and interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't heard that particular anecdote before, but I completely understand the sentiment behind it. A journalist's job is to be, that kind of bridge between what's going on, boots on the ground in a community or in a sector, and being able to kind of amplify that news. So it's got to be something that is of genuine interest to the general public. It's got to be sent to them and presented to a journalist in a timely manner as well. There's no point telling a journalist a story if actually the event or the amazing thing happened 2-3 weeks ago, because we're in an age now where, because of the technological advances, things move so ridiculously quickly. It is very much a service where you have to have your finger on the pulse. You have to understand, yes, that if you've got a great story, how do we maximize it as quickly as possible, and in front of which are the right audiences as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think freedom for me in general is such a big, I advocate for freedom, to live my life on my terms.
Mm.
And with regards to business as well, it's not just about the freedom of speech, it's the freedom to be able to get your message out. And I think for me, that's where PR has really come into play. But for you, what do you see with, not just clients, but also people? We've had conversations before about people think, oh, my business isn't big enough for PR, or, those kind of things that might be misconceptions. Because for me, it's opened up a world of growth and a world of freedom where actually I can now grow my business, and it has grown quite quickly because I've got a lot of credibility behind the PR work that we've done, which has been absolutely amazing. But also I never, and again, it might have been naively, but I never had the attitude that because I was a new business or because I was a smaller business or an SME, that PR wasn't relevant to me. I was like, well, how will people know about me if I don't share it? you know?
Yeah, and that's a really refreshing. That's why we love working with you, because you're of that mind where ambitiously you're like, I know what PR is. I know it's something that needs to be implemented into my business quickly. We do hear it a lot. I have countless conversations with people at networking events or online, etc., where they're like, we know what it is, but we're not there yet. And I would completely counter that to be like, well, where is there yet?
Yeah,
Because ideally, you want to be putting a PR strategy together, in an ideal world, before you've even launched the company. If you can have that PR power, that harnessing the power of the media and using that to your advantage in your launch strategy, that's going to massively accelerate your ability to get in front of the right customers, whether you're selling a product, whether you're wanting to get up on stages, whether you're delivering a service, doesn't matter. It's making sure that PR is about reputation management as well, and it's over a period of time building up the trust that people have, so that they know you, they like you, they understand who you and your business are and what you stand for. And in an ideal world, you want people to have that understanding and connection with what you're doing from day one. It doesn't really make sense to be leaving it three years down the line, when actually you could have grown your business quite a lot by that point, but you'll have different kind of team dynamics. And PR is also about kind of looking at that internal reputation as well, and making sure that all your staff are on board with spreading that outwards. So yeah, I hear so many people go, oh, we'd love to do PR, but we haven't really got a story yet. And the reason why I'm so passionate about what it is that we do is I truly believe that everybody has a story to tell, and that story deserves to be heard. And a lot of the time, particularly with sort of startups or smaller businesses at the beginning, part of our job is hand holding. It's confidence building to say, you might think that you don't have a story, but we've got that outside lens and understanding to go, yes, you do. This is the story. This is how it can be positioned. Drag it out of that person, and we can be the spokesperson or the cheerleader, for that client, even if they necessarily haven't got that confidence to begin with.
Do you think the friction comes where, because I see everything as a stacking effect, okay?
Mm,
So like everything I do every day is chipping away at something, and it's not necessarily a big end goal
mm,
always. Sometimes it's just to keep chipping away and making those progress moves every single day.
mm,
And I see the same with the PR, that it's a stacking effect. It's not like one article's going to make you or break you. It's not that one kind of podcast is going to do, this podcast, for example, the first podcast I ever released, probably got less than 10 people listening. That doesn't mean if I should never record a podcast again. Well, we wouldn't be sat here if that was the case. But if you just quit it the first time, and I kind of view PR in that way, because I think that people may, and you will know more than I do on this, but I think people may struggle with the concept of it because they can't see an instant tangible return on investment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge that industry-wide PR consultants are constantly having to have sort of educational-based conversations with clients or potential clients to sort of explain that also there's a difference between PR and marketing. And a lot of the
Yes.
time, if you're new to this world, we kind of get lumped together sometimes, and they're very different services. Like you say, marketing is about that initial shout out to go, we're here, we're here, we're here as a business, because you're competing with 10 other companies who are doing exactly the same thing as you. So you're getting it's a very quick message. It's often very sales dominated. It's for those kind of quick wins and gratifications. Whereas PR is about, it's longer term. It does take a longer time, but it's about when you've got those 10 companies all shouting, all vying for your attention. PR is what creates that understanding and veers your decision making to go, I actively am choosing business number 2 over business number 8 because I understand that they are a B Corp and they share the same values that I do as, a business who wants to work with other purpose driven, values driven companies, for example, or they're very family orientated, and then that completely resonates with me. And that takes time, but it also takes time to build up that understanding and that relationship between the business and the journalists that you are seeking support from when it comes to coverage, creation and generation. Because I think it would be naive to put out one press release and assume that every journalist is going to immediately know your company name, immediately assume that it's going to be worth their time and worth their while to open up that email. You have to build that trust with the journalist that what you're providing them in terms of a story is going to be well written. Like I say, a story that is timely and of use to them in that moment, that it's being provided along with all of the photography or video assets that they need to kind of enhance that media experience for the reader or the viewer. That doesn't happen immediately either, and that's where a PR can kind of bridge the gap. And that's where our value sits, because actually we've been working and building relationships with these journalists often for decades. So when you then come on board as a client, you're fast tracking that trust gap that everyone's talking at the moment about.
Yeah, I think that's like the reverse engineering, isn't it? You're building it for the long term. There is no fast track, but actually the fast track work's being done in the background because you've already built the relationships. That's the purpose of being with a PR company rather than trying to do it yourself. Do you see a correlation between businesses that maybe scale and succeed in a longevity point of view, those who have PR and those who don't?
The longevity comes from businesses that understand that it is a long game. And that can be, I'm not going to deny, when you're a PR agency and you're going through that process of educating potential new clients, it is an obstacle, an objection that you have to manage and educate through things like this.
Yeah.
But those businesses that go, yes, we have ring fenced a pot and we are appreciative of the hard work that goes into all of this and generating coverage behind the scenes. We understand that it's not going to be that immediate payoff that you might get from a paid social media ad where you get the stats straight away, but it's going to have that longer impact. And businesses change over time as well. And having a team that is immersed in what you do for a long period of time so that they can communicate, how that business is adapting, the changes that they're making, have that rapport through the media with their end client effectively, is so valuable. It doesn't happen just by investing 3 months into a PR agency, seeing it as a tick box exercise and be like,
Yeah.
right, a couple of press releases, that's written, that's done. Like, let's move on to something else, PPC,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. You've got to look at it as a whole approach.
I think as well, it frees up the business owner, especially if you're an entrepreneur or, predominantly working by yourself in the start or, wanting to build a team in the future. It frees you up to actually spend time on things that are going to drive the business forward.
Mm.
So having somebody who's got your back, which I've felt, with you and Danielle, who works with you as well, you've really been able to kind of be that wider lens of what's going on in the marketplace, what's out there, how can we position you, best? How can we take what you're doing and let people know about it, which has been really, really exciting. I mean, you were working for somebody else previously before you set your own agency up in PR,
Mm.
and you were doing PR, but you've taken that leap to create freedom by being a business owner. So just give us a bit of a background about that if you're happy to share.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I have always been in communications in some form or another. I went to Cardiff Uni and studied English language and linguistics. Even from a very young age, I knew that that was my strongest skill set. Very grateful that I had my uncle to look up to from a career perspective. So he started off as a journalist actually on the Salisbury Journal. So we're a family down on the south coast. Started off in the Salisbury Journal, worked his way up. He worked for Carlton. He worked on the holiday program with Jill Dando, and ended up as like director of corporate communications for the Guardian for a good couple of years. So he's somebody that in my family I've like, that is a cool job. Like, can I
Okay.
go off in that
Yeah.
sort of direction? And then when I left university, I worked for a number of different agencies just to kind of get a feel as to what was available. That ranged from working in-house at the Bath Priory Hotel, which is a very swanky 5-star hotel. And I remember my first day, I got given this iPad, shoved into this Michelin star kitchen. And at the time it was, they were doing something called the Trencherman's Lunch, which was like Paul Ainsworth, Nathan Outlaw, Tom Kerridge, like all of these now really high profile chefs in the kitchen. They were like, go and get a load of content, and I'd never been in a professional kitchen before, absolutely bricking it, feeling like I was in
No.
the way wherever I was. But that certainly got me used to kind of the fast-paced life that comms can be, and you find yourself in these bizarre scenarios sometimes. Worked for a digital marketing agency, which was very small and sort of family run, like boutique sort of feel to it. Transitioned to Golly Slater, which was a massive agency, offices all over the country. So it was really nice to just, as somebody in the early days of my career, kind of get a feel for potential opportunities. Worked for an agency in Bristol for about 3.5 years that specialised in the festivals and like live event sector. So if you imagine something like the Olympics as a temporary event, if you were to turn that upside down and shake it, all of the suppliers that would come tumbling down, like they were our clients. So crowd
Okay.
safety barriers,
Yeah.
event caterers. We worked for Arena Group, who did all the sort of temporary infrastructure for things like the Rugby World Cup. They built the big grandstands in London, just really cool clients. And again, you find yourself in amazing sort of pinch me moment
I was gonna
scenarios.
say that must have its benefits as well, to be on the team that's doing, all these amazing events and, you
Yeah,
might wangle yourself an invite to some of them.
yeah. I remember one of my highlights actually was so we always used to go to Longleat Safari Park as a family when I was a kid growing up. So it was always like a special place in my heart anyway. Elton John was doing a gig there on the lawns in front of Longleat House, and Arena were doing the temporary seating. So I was there all day before everyone got in, doing all the sort of photography of the setup and stuff. And then my mum and dad had tickets to it. So to kind of merge my professional with my sort of personal life and get to see them just as Crocodile Rock
Oh, nice.
was setting off was just one of those moments that I'll never forget. And like seeing Ed Sheeran do a charity, like a private charity gig at the Natural History Museum underneath Hope the Blue Whale, you're just like, is this my job? What am I doing
Yeah,
here?
that is pretty,
um,
pretty extraordinary, isn't it?
yeah, so I love that world. It was fantastic. And I have spoken very publicly about this on many a stage, so don't mind sharing it again here. But after 3.5 years of that world, I reached professional burnout and was really low. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't think I'm quite in the best place at the moment to be working for anybody else. But I didn't really know any other option. There were certainly no other business owners in my family, and even from school days, it was never something that was particularly championed or encouraged. But I really hit that wall where I was like, I don't think I've got any other option but to just take matters into my own hands. Which is how Sycamore Communications got formed, more out of necessity than having
Okay.
this burning desire to have my own agency or anything like that. But very proud to say that
I guess what you did
yeah.
recognize was that you needed the freedom to not have to be, under somebody else's management, under
Mm,
somebody else's kind of scrutiny, if you like,
mm,
or whatever that looks like.
mm.
You obviously were self-aware enough to understand that this life isn't congruent with who I actually want to be.
Yeah. No, totally. And it was a terrifying decision. Don't get me wrong. I think I have utmost respect for anybody in this world who takes the leap, takes the plunge into doing their own thing, because it's even on a good day, a business owner's life is full of ups and downs within
Yeah.
that 7, 8 hours of a working day.
Yeah,
Um,
you can go through the different seasons all in 1 hour, can't you? Let alone,
yeah,
in 1 day or 1 week or even a month, so,
yeah.
yeah, I know how that feels as well.
And especially when you then, you're doing well, you build a team, you have new responsibilities then that are upon your shoulders, and you're like, okay, it's not just about me anymore and
Yeah,
about just survival from that. It's about thriving and being responsible for other people's salaries, and the client roster grows, and it's a juggling act, one that I'm loving. And but it is a roller coaster every day.
yeah, definitely. One thing I wanted to ask you about was because through Sycamore PR and over the last 8 years, you've made some bookings for your clients with celebrities and things like that. Is that kind of a world where we imagine celebrities, for example, have all this freedom. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and they have all, their life's amazing according to society, which I don't think it is personally. However, you've probably seen a very different side to the process of what it takes for celebrities to be at events, to, be working with people and withhold the expectation of what their celebrity status gives them. Do you think that they are really free to do what they want whenever they want? Or do you feel that there is a certain amount of accountability that they have to keep going to events? They have to keep doing public appearances. They have to share what, some of us might not want to share.
I think it boils down to there being celebrities of two halves, maybe, and those
Okay.
who have become high profile and well known because they're genuinely doing something either to kind of disrupt their their world or to give back and to do good and have a clear, defined purpose and value behind what it is that they do.
Yeah.
I don't think they feel as beholden to the world of celebrity and therefore probably at least have a mental freedom.
Yes.
Um, but in their sort of day to day life, also probably have a bit of freedom, because if you're not chasing celebrity just for the sake of being famous and purely having X amount in the bank, you're not going to fill your day up as much with bouncing from appearance to appearance to appearance. You're going to cherry pick based on, okay, which opportunities am I actually going to say yes to because of being able to give back or to be able to shine a light on a great charitable cause or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's, that's my point. Like,
Mm.
to have freedom, you have to do something that's aligned with who you are and your values, which, we've touched upon as well. It's really, really important. I mean, do you feel free? Do you feel free in your life or in your business? How does the world of PR make you feel?
I definitely, I would say it was a work in progress, being fully transparent. I mean, like you say, I have got Danielle now on board, who's my full-time PR account manager. She's my absolute like right hand woman. She's incredible, and it has been quite a transition for me personally, having been that sort of person that rolls up my sleeves, has done the day job for the vast majority of Sycamore's existence. I've always been the one to have that client relationship, write the press releases, picking up the phone to the journalists. And you get to a point where you have to go, as hard as this is, because it has been my baby, to
Yeah,
hand that over to somebody else to free me up so that I
yeah,
can then look at the bigger picture of stepping into that proper CEO founder role and look at where am I going to drive the business? How do I attract new clients? How do I think about the bigger strategy as opposed to the day to day? Has that client been phoned back? Have I,
yeah,
reconciled
yeah,
that invoice? And that's taken a little bit of time for me to get used to. You and I both know about personality types, and it probably comes as no surprise. I am a heart personality type, and I very much feel like I naturally sit more in the camp of being a team player than a leader. So I've freed myself up to actually do more leadership training. I'm going into University of West England in Bristol's like leadership foundations course later this year, because I recognize that in myself, that I feel guilty if I'm not like, can I do a press release for you? Can I do that? No, there has to be
yeah,
that transition in me as a business owner now to be like, we've got Danielle. She is amazing at what she does. She doesn't need me to kind of get involved as well. I need
yeah.
to step back to delegate and to look at the bigger picture. But yeah, it's been a work in progress.
Do you feel that you can just dip in and out when you want to? Do you still get that bit of what you love, or is it about seeing the results for the clients is what you really love?
Obviously, first and foremost, getting results for our paying clients is the most important thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a business to turn up to on a daily basis. But going back to what you were saying earlier in terms of having that mental clarity and that freedom to operate a business in a way that feels authentic to you, is something that I've been able to do at the top end of this year. So we've actually, as a company, put in place a new charitable kind of partnership program where
Nice.
um, every team member on company time will get a day a month to dedicate to a charity of their choice. So for some people, that might be they're wanting a more kind of hands-on approach, driving a van to pick up stuff for food banks, or mucking out stables at the local horse charity. And for some people, it might be, do you know what, I want to continue using my PR skills and give back in a pro bono way. To offer to that support. So that has been a really nice balance between, yes, we've got the day-to-day operations, but we're starting to expand who we are, who we're able to help, and actually live authentically by the values that we hold important, not just thinking it, but showing our clients that we're doing it as well. So
I love
that's,
that because you've
yeah.
taken action on something that many would want to do and probably plan to do, but not actually do.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's hard, you know, you have these ambitions of you, oh, I'd like to do this more, I'd like to do
Mm,
that more. But actually, do we make that happen?
mm,
You know, and as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you have made that happen, and you've allowed the freedom of time for your team to be able to, you know, give back as well, not just your business.
mm.
I think that's incredible. I think you
Oh,
should really
thank
give
you.
yourself a pat on the back for that. Yeah, I just think that's inspiring because that is really being authentic to who you are and, you know, living on your terms, designing your business around, you know, the life you want to live and not letting just the hype of everything take over, which sometimes can just feel that everybody's doing things for doing things rather than doing things because they remember what they want to make an impact on and they remember how they want to be remembered, I guess.
Yeah, I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they completely turned sort of the way I look at like business networking as well on its head. And I think a lot of people can walk into a room and think, okay, there's this group of people that I'm going to meet. Like, am I going to, where is the next client from? Like, who's going to be useful to me? Who do I need to speak to? And actually looking at it, flipping it on its head to being like, okay, I'm walking into a room, to how many people in this room can I be helpful? How can I help? How can I give back? And that's gonna, when you put just a kind of theoretical PR head on this scenario, that's going to do you so much more benefit as well, because people are
Yeah,
going to remember you for genuinely coming into a conversation open, interested, engaged in other people's problems and thinking, oh, I could fix that by connecting you to this person in my circle, or I know the best, kind of service to provider to plug that gap.
yeah,
And that strength of relationship is really important as well. Yeah, and so being able to kind of give back in whatever way you can, I think in this age of, like, again, quick gratification and everything being fixed by AI,
yeah.
that human connection is so important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, sometimes journalists can get a bad rep. Well, everybody can get a bad rep at any time, depending on who you ask,
Yeah.
actually. So not just journalists, but in the context of what we're talking about here, you know, journalists can get a bad rep. Historically, there's been various different things, but I'm sure that is the minority that's picked up and not the
Mm.
majority. I know the majority of people, especially in PR, you know, in journalism, they want to help people share their messages and their stories so they can impact others. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say I think there are ways in which you can further help a journalist though as well. When I remember when I was really, really junior, was learning the ropes. I didn't really know what I was doing at all, very much learning on the job. And I remember kind of calling national journalists after a press release had been sent out to follow up, encouraged to be proactive and stuff. But actually, they're working at such tight deadlines. It's fast paced, and even now they've got such like a skeleton team in some of the highest publications that you can think of. Having the day interrupted by a junior who was kind of calling because she was told to do that,
Yeah,
not really knowing what to say or what value I was adding at that point to a journalist. Yes, I got shouted at a couple of times, and you learn your lesson and you learn the ways of actually going, okay, there's a way that I can interact with a national journalist, which is totally different to, say, a blogger or a talent agent or somebody on a local newspaper or local radio. And you learn the ways of being able to help the journalist. And in turn, that means that then you're not entering into these conversations where the journalist has a potential to get a bad rap because you're actively helping them. You're not going to put them in a position of being really knocked off with you,
yeah. No, I
interrupting
think
them
that's
on
a really,
deadline.
really, really good point to make. So I guess my final question to you would be, how do you see PR helping people to live through freedom or gain freedom in business or in life, really? Because there's personal branding, obviously, as well as business branding. So how do you kind of see PR being an avenue that people can actually allow themselves to give them more freedom?
Well, I think as a service, it frees up people to be authentic. I don't think you have to be a sort of beholden to sort of digital marketing is very about like quick results, and you're kind of on this tightrope like all the time. This hamster wheel of like more content, more content, more content. PR frees you up to be able to be truly yourself in the marketplace. I'm a traditionalist PR at heart, so a lot of the stories that we work on for our clients are, they're just about decent success stories. We're not so much in the world of kind of, guerrilla stunts or anything like that. It's about just championing good people. And the more that story and that kind of great feeling from a business or your personal brand can be put out there, I think it just frees you up to be able to go, how do I do more of that? Because when that gets the results, when that gets attention, it naturally will put you in front of the right people. It opens up doors to new partnerships or joint ventures, speaking opportunities. The knock-on impact of when you get PR right is absolutely exceptional. And, if you have this kind of machine that's being worked on your behalf going behind the scenes, you're not struggling about thinking about where's the next client from, where's the next influx of money coming from, because PR is doing the talking for you, which then means as a business owner you can focus on using your time to do what it is you really want.
So if we were to say that social media and marketing are the quick wins, PR is the credibility and the legacy behind that.
Absolutely. Couldn't put it better myself.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today, Hannah. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure there's many people who will be very interested in what we've discussed today. And we will be putting obviously some links on the podcast for Sycamore PR, and anything that anybody wants to learn more about, which will be really, really good. We'll link your social media as well. So thank you so much for joining me, and
Pleasure.
we will be speaking soon. Take
you.
care.
Bye.
You're listening to the Freedom is Served podcast with me, Steph Ward. Subscribe for more.